Welcome back to Aspect of the Day. Today, a lovely aspect, Venus trine Pluto. Now, if you're here watching, you probably don't have this aspect in your chart. Why? Because people who have this aspect are not often interested in astrology, weirdly enough. One of the main reasons people come to astrology is because they have problems in love and romance and in their personal relationships. And generally speaking, that comes from difficult aspects with their Venus, their Pluto, or between their Venus and their Pluto. So if you have this aspect, just lost the page, and you are here, welcome. Thank you for being here. And I want to remind you how blessed you truly are. However, if you do not have this aspect, I don't want you to be disheartened. There are lessons in every aspect and in every placement and in every symbol of all kinds in astrology that teach us something about life that are of benefit to all of us, whether or not we have those particular placements in our chart. So it's very important to take the good with the good. Don't think that there's always something negative lurking. And in this aspect, there's truly not. So to resent someone who has this aspect in their chart, to whom love and romance and friendship come easily, is really to have not dealt with the difficult aspects in your own chart. Okay? It is to not have worked through your own traumas, your own resentments, your own bitterness, your own attitudes toward life. Okay? And I want to offer you some hope here, if you don't have this aspect, that you actually do have windows of experiencing this aspect occasionally in life. Venus in transit will trine your Pluto at various points throughout your life. And you might even be lucky enough for Pluto to trine your natal Venus in transit at some point in your life. It would only happen once, if ever. What I'm saying is, we can't feel like we're slaves to our own birth charts because our charts are dynamic. They're constantly interacting with whatever's going on externally in transit and in life, which is really what the transits are meant to symbolize. The transits don't have power unto themselves. It's how they manifest in the world. It's the patterns of events that we can observe with clarity and with acceptance. That's what matters. So in my natal work, when I'm working with someone on their birth chart, I am looking to empower their self-authority and their decision-making ability, in spite of what's going on out there in the world and in transit. That's why I don't check transits very often, even as a professional astrologer, because I want to empower you to be yourself, but also to make the right choices, the best things for you and for all, regardless of what's happening externally. All right? So it's very important not to be bitter toward people who have this lovely aspect. Nevertheless, where are we? God damn, almost 4.5 minutes already of me talking about how you should have a better attitude in life. Well, let's dig into the lessons from the people who have this beautiful natal aspect, Venus trine Pluto. This trine shows an intense emotional nature which is capable of the highest form of love. It's truly a genuine, rich form of love because, in a sense, these are two love planets, aren't they? Venus is about kind of that surface feeling of love. It's about aesthetics. It's about what you're attracted to. It's about how your emotions are affected by other people and that sense of connection that you feel with them. It's about romance, therefore. But Venus can spin out of control when it's left to its own devices, when it doesn't have Daddy Sun or Granddaddy Saturn guiding it. It can become rather hedonistic. So can Jupiter, the other benefic planet. So be careful with those benefics, all right? Maybe that's my Saturn nature talking. And then Pluto. Pluto can be so deep and obsessive and possessive over things. But being deep or going deep isn't alone a good thing or a bad thing. It's how it's managed, right? So in Venus, that kind of surface likability, social nature, romantic nature, attraction, love, connects with the depths of Pluto, you have something that almost immediately can be very deep, very engrossing. In its loftiest aspect, it indicates spiritual regeneration through love. There is often something predestined about the natives' love lives and marriages. Love at first sight is not uncommon. Because the emotions have great power behind them, the natives' close relationships will be of a significant character. Right. It's not purely a Venus relationship this person's going to get into, or purely a Plutonian relationship. So in a sense, these two planets that are difficult to deal with on their own are really helping each other out in the form of a trine. Remember, a trine is a sustainable ease of flow over the long term. So it has this constant, subtle energy to it that makes the things of those planets just easier to deal with. You almost don't even have to think about it, right? You just let them happen. So these deeper, significant, regenerative relationships kind of just come to you naturally. It's a natural vetting process that happens. You don't have to go down a checklist of these are my likes and dislikes, and these are my boundaries, and they better meet these needs and these wants, blah, blah, blah. It's not about that. And honestly, it shouldn't be about that for anyone. It's one of the lessons that this positive aspect can teach all of us, is an ease of flow, that the path of least resistance, as long as you've worked on yourself, you do know yourself, and you've become a master of your difficult aspects, you can allow that ease of flow to happen in your life. You have a natural, when you're secure in yourself, spiritually speaking, it's very important, then you just naturally don't attract the wrong relationships. Not that any relationships are wrong. If you keep attracting toxic relationships, you're toxic too. And that's what you need in order to grow out of that pattern. There's no such difficulty with this aspect. Okay? So in a sense, this aspect gives us an ideal to aim for in our spiritual work, especially regarding relationships and whatnot. They're definitely romantic, but in a powerful, positive way, which has more direction than Venus-Neptune. Right? Neptune can be very nebulous and fantasy-driven, detached from reality, and more constancy than Venus-Uranus, right? Because Uranus wants to just change for its own sake, just to be different and unique and weird and quirky. And that often drives people, if they have a Uranian complex, often drives people away from good things that do have sustainability, that would offer them great things over the long term, because they want to be different. Same problem with the ruler, Aquarius, right? The underdeveloped Aquarian ego wants to be different for its own sake and wants to look as though they're very special and unique and independent. What they don't realize is that they're setting up this dichotomy, this dual way of thinking that's actually delusional, that they don't realize that in order for them to be unique and independent, they need the group. with which to contrast themselves, or from which to contrast themselves. So they're enslaving themselves to being part of a group in seeking independence and uniqueness. All right, so don't make that Uranian or Aquarian mistake, regardless of how your chart's laid out. Even in a trine aspect, these two planets indicate a strong sex drive. In the case of the trine, it finds constructive expression. Yes. So because we're dealing with a trine and not a more fiery, short-term, light up and then burn out kind of energy, it's a more sustainable sex drive that involves the deeper parts of one another. The sex isn't going to be the main thing in a relationship with someone who has this aspect. It's going to be an accompaniment, a complement, an enhancement that they love to delve deeply into, but which doesn't rule over the relationship. Because the relationship, even if it were sort of a very quick connection, even if it were a love at first sight type connection, the sex is still just an expression of the love, of the depth that's already there beyond that. Right. Penetrating understanding of the reality and power of love can have transforming effects on others, as well as on the natives themselves. Often they or their marriage partners are changed for the better through the relationship. Yes, look, Venus is always subject to change. It's an inner planet. It moves quickly. Pluto is always subject to change because we go to such a length of depth into things when we're operating from our Pluto. And when we do that, we're often not seeing the bigger picture. We're going deeply, but not broadly. So we're kind of missing the point. We're missing where this immersion fits in the greater context of our lives and in reality. And so Pluto is subject to change very quickly, although it's a slow-moving planet, because of the blinders that we're wearing when we act on Pluto in isolation. So in a sense, Venus, the most kind of surface and shallow parts of ourselves which love, and Pluto, the deepest but most possessive and lacking of the big picture, because it's so far out there, it can't see the rest of what is. That's why I get so obsessive. They're working together. You have that feeling of the trine, the flow, the ease of connection between those two planets. So in a way, you're extracting the best qualities of both of them. So again, I want to remind you that you're not doomed if you don't have this aspect. In fact, you will have this transit aspect at several points in your life, especially Venus transit in a trine with your Pluto. And you could have the converse once in your life. And even if you've already had it, since getting into astrology, maybe you feel a little disheartened. Oh man, I already had my, Pluto transit trine Venus and now it's gone. What am I going to do? Well, look back at the life events and the ease of flow in your romantic or friendship relationships at that time, and take a lesson from that, from experiences in your own life, to improve how you make choices in the future. Because again, that's what astrology is all about, and that's what I'm trying to empower you to do, especially by talking about these aspects. It's not just about immersing yourself in them, it's about overcoming them so you can do the right thing in spite of external circumstances and in spite of how you feel you're supposed to be. because there's no supposed to. There's only what is. So embrace it and move forward in love. Cheers, guys. See you in the next one.